Alright, we are right back in on Player Talk Radio.
Mix with the young DJ Cuda. Tonight we gonna be going in on the ones and twos and twos.
Let's get it.
On Player Talk Radio.
Let's get it, man. DJ Cuda back in the building. Let's get it. Brother Wise is in the building with us today. Let's go. Let's go.
Down a little bit more because they might be slow.
All the money in the safe. All the money in the safe. All the money in the safe, baby. Let's spend it all in a day. Doesn't wanna ball with you. This shit down the mall with you. Mind if you wanted to. You know how it's supposed to in the face. You so pretty, you so pretty in the face, girl. You so pretty, you so pretty in the face, in the waist. You so thin, you so thin in the waist, girl. You so fine, I'ma try to spend it all.
I just fucked up the bag and I get it back again. Then in the way, but she throwing that ass. Only relate when we speaking that cash. Been stepping in Giuseppe for the friends and the best.
Alright, we in the building, man. It's Player Talk Radio. We got our brother Wise right back in the building with everybody, man. We in here chopping up some good game. Want you guys to know that, you know, we streaming. Got some good game for the family. Brother Wise, man, we still in the building, man. We kicking it.
Yeah, I'm here.
So this is the thing now. On this half of the show, man, we're gonna be talking about some real shit. So, on the past show, we talked about, we got into shoes. Brother Wise, I want you to kind of break down what type of tool is a car? What type of tool is a car, and how can one that is aspiring to learn game utilize his car, not just to pull any women, but the one that he wants, or the one that can teach him something? What are some things a man encounters when he has the vehicle, the automobile?
A man, and looking at the vehicle specifically, is that, of course, that vehicle is an extension of him. So if he were in the game and he's a Mac and a pimp, you know, and again, I've tried to separate this to make sure people understand. Macking is information that I think all men should have. To
Facts.
be a pimp, to work at a specific business, it's a source of income. It's a way of life, and that's people basically sex for money. And we see that with porn and other industries. So if you were in that lifestyle and you have a vehicle, you know, you're going to want to have a luxury vehicle, sort of thing. It's showing that you strive for the nicer things in life.
Right.
We know that there are quite a few things that you can do in life and actually achieve the nicer things in life. And when someone sees you representing in that fashion, they know who they're dealing with. Back in the days, it used to be common for a gangbanger, for giving an example, to have a Cutlass or a Regal. So to have these sort of vehicles, when you pulled up in a Cutlass and you put the Euro front end, or you know, these sort of things, cutting and wrapping, and if you had a low rider, you know, whatever it may be, a person could pretty much make out, you know, what kind of individual. A person with a motorcycle, driving a Harley with a jacket on, you know. So your vehicle is an extension of you. So that's you know, if he's talking to women and it's one of his tools, she can see that he likes the nicer things in life, so she can understand whether or not that's attractive to her. Does she want to have the nicer things in life? Is this the sort of vehicles that she wants to own, drive in, be a part of in general? But if you're, let's say, you know, just your hard-working man, and you have a truck, you know, that truck is going to put in that work. It's going to help you to achieve what you're looking for. You need to haul some things.
That's true.
You know, and if you have that truck for, maybe you live in a certain environment, so you have a four-wheeler, So they usually represent the sort of life that you live, where you're going, what you're achieving, what you're attempting to achieve. So it's your tool, and you can maximize it according to what you're doing.
Do you think a car is synonymous with shoes?
I think they both go hand in hand. If we go ahead and say tools, then that's everything. If you were a farmer and you're out on the farm, you probably have gloves and different type of clothing you might wear, the shoes, the boots, and that's to help you get the job done. So in the case that you're a player and you deal with women, or you're in a business environment, you're going to probably want to wear a suit and this sort of thing, because that lets them know, I mean business. I'm doing what my job is. I'm on my job. If you were at home, you probably have on a robe and kick on some slippers.
That's true. That is so true. And it demonstrates a lifestyle and things that you do. It fellas, they say a picture is 1,000 words, and you have to understand 1,000 words is 1,000 words you don't have to say. So
that's right.
What he's talking about is, this is demonstrating something that you don't have to say to a certain degree.
To a certain degree, because if I pulled up in the most raggedy vehicle and the most raggedy clothes, and even just to speak on your mouthpiece being one of your tools, it's not a tangible tool per se. You go buy somewhere, but in that case, someone's going to say, you're representing what? It doesn't look like you're going to accomplish anything for that. You need to be prepared to do your job, and that's not going to cut it. So they're not going to find success if you were that industrial type worker, but you don't have the industrial uniform, you don't have the industrial shoes, you don't have any of the industrial tools that you need to get the job done. They're going to say, did you come here to go to work, or did you come here to go to sleep? I mean, what did you come here for?
Exactly. Yeah, they'll press you on that. They'll definitely press you on that. And speaking of mouthpiece, that is another tool. Fellas, you have to have a mouthpiece to a certain degree. But you know what, too? To a certain degree, I will say you just need to know when to talk. And the reason why I say to a certain degree is because a lot of times in the stage that you guys are, which is seeking game and learning how to date, you have to understand sometimes you having a mouthpiece right now might not be the best option for you. Meaning that sometimes a woman will be interested in you, and sometimes you speak a little too much and you talk yourself out of the draws. What I mean by that is sometimes you offer up a little bit too much information about you, and this information about you kind of destroys whatever perception she may have of you.
That is correct.
And I want to tell you guys that sometimes you have to understand that if you're approaching women and you find yourself in a situation like that, what you need to do is realize that you don't need to have too much of a mouthpiece at this moment. You need to just make certain statements, ask certain questions, which are open-ended questions. We talked about that on the show. Questions that cannot be answered with a yes or a no. Questions that will have to require somebody to invest a little bit more than just a yes or a no. So when you ask these questions, they're going to teach you how to catch them, but you're not going to realize this until you understand exactly what you're doing and what you're asking of this person, fellas. Also, with what you're asking, it's going to mature with you over time, because once you realize how much information you actually get from people by asking certain questions, when you go to actually select a wife or a woman that you really want to be joined at the hip with, you have to ask her these questions to get the actual real answer. You don't want to put yourself in a place with a woman that both of you guys can play around, because then you can ultimately shoot yourself in the foot.
Exactly. Because, ultimately, in some cases, guys, they're probably pretty interested in a woman, for a given example, and we're going to accept these yes or no's. We're going to lead them into the answers. You're wearing what you want on your sleeve, so she says, I'm going to go ahead and tell him what he wants. It may not be the truth. I'm just going to tell what he wants. So, you're not really able to get the results that you're looking for simply because of the way that you approach. And we all also have different personalities. If you're not so much of a talker, you'll probably be more in your action than in your action words.
That's true.
So,
So definitely, yeah. That's another thing. If you see that your actions kind of show you more results, make sure you use less words and your action. And another thing you guys don't do, which is body language, man. When you guys meet a woman, I'm telling you, you have to learn how to be touchy-feely. And what I mean by touchy-feely is not just walk up and grab the pussy. Don't do that. What you want to do is you want to kind of be, you want to have to put off in her mind that you're the guy that can invade her physical, like her personal space, because that's just how you are, not just something that you're doing. So when you're talking to her, sometimes you have to add a nudge, or when she's walking through the door, you put your hand on her back or guide her into the door, or when you greet her, you make sure you get a hug or some type of physical interaction. It's called kino. You guys have to kino escalate with these women in a lot of cases, and this jump starts it. You guys be pulling out chairs, throwing your coat over puddles, opening car doors and stuff, and then wondering at the end of the night why everything's awkward because you're cold as hell. Whereas if you were out on a date and you were, sitting beside her, had your hand on her lap and things like that, you would have been touching her all night. So she's familiar with your body temperature and things like that, and familiar with you being in her personal space. So, you guys...
Yeah, I was going to say my perspective is that, you ever hear sometimes in the game, you have, individuals that say, I was born for this, you can't create pimp, you can't create it. But I have a different perspective than that. I think that's a bit just someone stroking their own ego.
Yeah.
I think we can learn anything when it comes down to it. But sometimes we're naturally inclined for different things. I've never really thought too much about different things. I think for one woman, I might feel some kind of way, but for another one, I may not. If I didn't really begin to take the steps to make contact with a woman so that we can actually develop whether or not there's chemistry, whether or not she's going to kind of turn away from it. And sometimes a woman could basically turn away from it because it's a little fast for her. She might really like the guy, but she's shy, scary.
That's true.
When I say scary, she might have had things happen in her lifetime that, that really isn't the time to be doing it, at least, or the way to be doing something. So I think a lot of reading, and it's also based on, how do I feel about that woman? For me, it's more work than I really want. I have to spend a lot of time saying, well, okay, I'm going to put my hand here. I probably wouldn't have really thought about it much. If I was just really attracted to her, I'm going to kind of naturally do it. And if she's attracted to me, she's going to naturally open that door for me.
Right. And sometimes, too, fellas, you get the touchy-feely woman, too. The one that's in your personal space, likes to touch you and just be all up on you. That's a choosy type, too.
That's right.
And also, fellas, what you want to look for, too, are IOIs. IOIs are an indicator of interest. When she's talking to you, her feet are pointed towards you. Certain things like her body language, her shoulders are squared, when you guys are sitting down. I would say kind of sort of lean back. Just, if she's leaning forward towards you and you're kind of leaning back in a relaxed position, that that's dominant position. It's little subtle things that shows you what is going on. Like I tell you guys, compliance test. If you open your hand in front of her and be like, come here, or something, and she comes over to you, or things like that, there's some type of attraction there. So you guys have to learn how to read, and you guys have to learn how to speak, and that's what we're talking about. We also talked about a little bit of tools and how to use them. Now, money is also a tool. What's your take on money?
My take on money is, I've actually used it as a tool. It was really interesting. In the game, it's a really good tool because, of course, it basically shows a certain level of success
Yes.
that you actually have some. And of course, I'm just going with, the actual greenbacks. They're not called those these days, but the idea that if you had money in your pocket, let's say, for a given example, you want to use your money as a tool, but you don't want to be a tool and carry a lot of money on you, and you find yourself in a situation.
Yes.
Maybe you're going to be looking at being robbed or something, but just in saying that you've really thought about things. I've had a lot of money in my pocket, and when I had a woman that I thought I was having some interest in, and in order to get her attention, what I did is pull my money out so she can see it. In some cases, you'll make sure that you could pull something off the top of what's in your pocket without taking it all out. But in this case, I pulled it all out. The interesting thing for me, because it was, I was actually testing right at the moment to see what I would get. And when she saw the money, her heart jumped. I seen her eyes buck, her body built, and so
Her whole demeanor changed.
right. So I knew right there I had conversation. Now to me, it wasn't about buying her. It wasn't about manipulating her in a negative way. And she's interested in money. I didn't know if she would respond that way, and I don't feel that I was being something that someone is going to want to say something down on. I mean, it is a tool. So when I pulled it out and she responded that way, I didn't stand as if I wanted to give her some. I didn't stand there with it in my hand. I put it back. I knew from that if I wanted to talk to her, I could, and of course I did talk to her, and she was receptive. Because ultimately, I think in her mind, whether there was things that she was going to need to learn, some realizations she was going to have to come to, one thing she knew was she wasn't going to be dealing with someone that couldn't take her to go eat, someone that couldn't take her to, do something, go out, pay our way and do what needs to be done. And sometimes, a lot of times, persons, they think they know what tricking is, and so on. A video talking specifically on what that is.
On what tricking is, yeah. You guys got to check that video out, man.
You got people that will believe that if they took a woman to dinner and paid for the dinner, that they're tricking, but that's not the case. When you're in the game, you have total ability to take a woman to go and eat, have conversation. You're gonna pay the way. You don't expect her to come out of her pocket, and I'm not doing anything for her and having this kind of disposition. If I go to eat, and let's say I'm doing well, so I have money, I eat at nice places, and I'm going to take her to eat. I'm not going to take her to McDonald's or try to find a place cheap because I'm trying to prove to somebody that I'm not a trick. No, we're going to go to eat in the places that I eat. She's going to be able to eat like me. She can order whatever she wants on the menu, and I'm going to learn some things in that. Is she going to order the most expensive? Is she going to be demanding and feel that she owed something, or she could take advantage of me? And she might, at that time, find out that I'm not willing to be taken advantage of. If she wants a trick, and I could introduce her to the game properly. And that's just the standpoint of my having been a P in the game, that, I get it that way. But as it pertains to if I'm a square and I'm not going to take her to the track because apparently she's willing to turn tricks and she wanted me to be the first one, or one of many maybe, then my goal then is to, I could see, is she a gold digger that she's probably only going to want to be with me for finances? Well, when you're a Mac and you really understand things, you know that she is going to like you for more than your finances. I know that, she's going to like the things that most women like. However, not everyone is made for you. Not everyone likes you. And if the money was going to be her only desire, then I could let her know, there's ways to make money. And even as a square, I can do that. There's ways to make money.
Right.
We don't necessarily have to get in a relationship, but we can cooperate and develop things in a way like a business. What can I do to help you, and what can you do to help me?
Right. And fellas, what he's telling you too is a big gem, because what you have to understand is that he's talking about money as a tool, but what you have to understand is that now what people talk about in the game is gold diggers. But when you see, this is the importance of why I tell you that guys like us, and we're constantly running tests also. Because when you're talking about what she's talking about, you're submitting to a test. So what I'm saying is that you guys don't want to have to look at money as a way of attracting women, because you guys will get frustrated and say, okay, well, I'm attracting gold diggers. One gem that we can give up in the game is that certain women act different around certain different guys. So what I'm saying is that if I see a girl out on the street and I approach her and Brother Wise approaches her, we can get two different responses, just depending on how she responds and acts to us, and then also what we're saying. And also what I'm saying is that I say that to say this. If you do use your money and you see that you've attracted a gold digger, what happens is when you're using your money in the form of a test, automatically assume that you could attract a gold digger. And then when you check her on being a gold digger, she might not be a gold digger to you anymore. She could be a gold digger to a next dude if she's following what you're talking about, because you automatically call it. So don't use your money as a form of pulling, but if you do, understand what you're doing with it.
I do know that I think anytime a person is laced properly and they are able to utilize their Mac, and they'll be able to deal with a lot of situations,
Right.
be it
Right.
the way that they're supposed to or not. I had a situation that the opposite, and I'm pretty sure we all had, the gold digger situation and the opposite situation. I took a lady to eat, and all she really wanted to eat was chicken. And so that just goes to show, because she knew I had money, it wasn't about how I flossed, but she could tell about how I lived in total, all of the tools that she could see, and, even by personality, she could tell that money wasn't really any sort of problem.
Yeah.
So when we go eat, and she was ordering chicken, I told her, I said, well, you don't have to eat chicken. I mean, we're out, if you wanted, you could eat lobster, shrimp, or, something different, steak, or, you don't even have to eat it all. And I would prefer that she not get a doggy bag, but if she wanted to, that's fine. But in the case that she said, no, I want chicken, I don't want that. And she basically, as far as I'm concerned, was just making the statement that I'm not with you to get as I can get. So that meant a lot to me, and she was definitely a great young lady.
Yeah, and that's the thing, fellas, man. There's always exceptions to the game, and there's always unique people. You're always going to run into... You meet some of the most interesting people doing this shit. Just
Sure.
meeting people. You meet the most interesting people. You be like, damn, I didn't think people like this were out here. You meet some dumb people, too, now. So, when we talk about the game and we're talking about what we're talking about, fellas, in the bigger grand scheme of things, we're using these tools to hone certain tactics. And one of a good tactic that you guys should have is to have routine. Have routine spots where you're taking these women and things like that. Like, if you go to a certain restaurant, people in the restaurant know you, they high-five you. When you come in there, they see you bringing different women. What happens is you start to gain status in that place. And, these little things can help you. You don't have to go to a track. You don't have to do all of these things just to feel this way. As an average Joe, you can have some type of status. You just got to just know how to play your cards, know when to hold them and know when to fold them and what to do with them. So, one thing that I want you guys to do is to definitely understand the game that we're talking about, how to use these tools. Don't fall subjective to money. Don't fall subjective to shoes. Understand the same people that shop at Gucci and the same people that shop at Macy's and Marshalls and shit get the same type of women. Point blank. Point blank. And a lot of times it could be their mouthpiece. A lot of times it could be how they utilize their tools. And a lot of times it could be just because she's attracted to you. Anything could happen.
Anything.
Yep. So, now, what I want to get into is something practical. Because I guess people just want a whole quick fix to things. And we're not the type of people to give you a quick fix. But if we were to give you a quick fix, which a lot of these things we will have to unpack, Brother Wise, what I want to ask you is, how can you, because what we're talking about when we actually break down these steps, because we're going to get into the progression model, when you actually break down these steps, and the profound thing about it is that once you naturally learn what you're doing and how to do it, it's just that sometimes you got to see the steps and then you'll see how you naturally do it. What we're actually practicing is speed seduction. It's a form of speed seduction. And what we're talking about is having game to at least catch within, what would you say, Brother Wise, 3 to 4 days?
Yeah, I feel that just on a natural, for me, maybe it would be a little different from others.
Okay.
I capture in about 3 or 4 days.
Yeah, about 3 to 4 days. That's not bad. Under a week. You know?
Yeah, sometimes it could spread over a period of time, 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Normally go into 3 or 4 because then there's too much of a space in between. We're talking friend zone. We're talking, she probably just really doesn't like me. Maybe she had something going on in her life. Maybe it was on my...
You're right, yeah.
By the 3rd or 4th meeting is pretty much, and I'm not talking about short meetings, but in going out on dates and spending time together.
Yeah.
If we're not able to consolidate something by 3 or 4 dates, and we're still in that friend area, we'll likely remain that if I'm going to remain friends at all.
And that, and fellas, and even the people that are just dating, how you can make that work for you also is 3 to 4 days, and they can be full days. They can be full days, spending with each other. You have to understand 3 to 4 days out of somebody's life ain't shit. But what we're saying is that you guys have to be on the same page with what's going on to actually move on. So 3 to 4 days is really good. Yep.
To expound on that, I think a lot of times, if I spoke to a woman and I said, hey, about a 3rd or 4th date, I expect to be getting some, I expect us to at least be getting somewhere in this relationship.
Yeah.
That's not appropriate because that's the thirsty, that's demanding, and there's no real chemistry involved with something like that. It's more just having this in mind because there's a limit to the time that I'm going to quote unquote waste.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be if I thought I was wasting my time. That's tricking. But in the case that I actually realize I'm wasting my time, I would cut it short. And I can usually tell a period of time. And some might say, well, you know what? You've been dealing with nothing but hoes then. But in actuality, I've carried on several very long...
Yeah, of course. The square women go for that too because, they're out here working and kids and all kinds of shit. They live in life too. So a lot of times, fellas, when you hear something that doesn't sound too right, sometimes go out there and try it. Even if it's from us, go out there and try it and see if it'll work for you too. There's exceptions in the game.
Yeah, there are variables that we always have to contend with. So in the case where you actually meet a woman and you really think she is worth the time that you're going to spend in order to get the results, and about a 3rd or 4th date, she's moving a little slower again. She might have been molested growing up, something like that. So she's going to move a little slower. Just the way that she views things, she's going to move a little bit slower. But she's definitely showing a lot of the signs that she's worth investing in as far as the time goes. So it might take a little longer for some people. So it isn't a for sure thing that it has to be 3 or 4 days.
That's true. And you have to understand is that when you're doing this, you're making a mixture. It's a mixture of your game, a mixture of the situation, a mixture of people's pasts, including yours, things like that, and how you guys carry things. So, fellas, you have to understand that you're getting her to invest a certain amount of trust in you. So the thing is that, when you're doing this, you want to have expectations in your mind, but at the same time, you have to understand you're coming into people's lives at certain parts in their lives. So, you have to realize that you don't want to set ultimatums just because you think it'll take three days to pull this broad. Sometimes for her it'll take 3 weeks, and a lot of times too, you have other women and things that you have going on, just as she has other men and things that she has going on, that she takes her time out of her day to come see you, or you take your time. You guys get together and then go apart. So sometimes too, you might not even get to see her for a couple of days or really do what you want to do or understand where you are. So Brother Wise,
longer.
Yeah, exactly.
I wanted to expound on it a little bit. If it took less than 3 days, probably in my own mind, I'm thinking, well, what kind of woman am I dealing with? Can so fast, you know. I don't think she's really thought about what she's doing. Does she really like me, or is she over anxious? So I probably think that through a little bit, not necessarily going straight to saying, well, she's a hoe or something because she's willing to take it further. I'd like to think that I have that sort of magnetism. But at the same time...
You're right, yeah. Because I was about to say, sometimes, too, you have to take a step back and be like, damn, it might have been the game. Because a lot of times when you approach a lot of women and you know, when you talk to them, you can build hella comfort with them, and that could be the thing.
Right. See, that is definitely true, you know. And if I had a reserve and thinking, wow, well, does she potentially do this for other guys? You know, I'm thinking disease, I'm thinking mental health. And so from there, I might want to step back a bit, or I might want to be the person who actually, you know, says, hey, you know, give me a little more time. I'm not sure that's where I want to go with you, you know.
Let me ask you a question, because, and this is a personal question, like, for myself that I wanted to ask you. Myself, I find times in the game where, you know, one thing about dealing with people is that when you plunge yourself in the game, you self-make yourself a people person. You understand what I'm saying? It's like you're making yourself a people person, maybe on fault or by accident, but it's usually on fault because, you know, you have to talk to different people. Isn't it crazy how you can approach a woman, but you know another woman that's like her? Not the same girl, but it's like, oh, she reminds me of my niece or of my one of my friend's friend, or she has that type of personality. And then you start to kind of treat her like you would treat that woman that you know that has that same personality. And when you do that, I don't know how to explain it, but is there a way you can build comfort like that? Like if she's similar, so you kind of know what kind of things that she likes? Does that make sense?
I think that's a natural inclination. If we were to find that someone has a lot of qualities like someone else, that could definitely help.
Yeah.
Because you have an idea how they will likely respond. Of course, you're finding these responses, these behaviors, and so you're saying to yourself, oh, okay, and it definitely can make you comfortable. It's something you might be leery of because, you know, I think everyone is an individual.
Yeah.
A Mac is always trying to stand out. He's trying to be different. He doesn't want to be like everyone else. He doesn't want to be like every Mac. And it's that uniqueness that everybody is going to find that special attraction to an individual.
That's true. Man, fellas, man, I hope you soaking up all of this game, man. We got it. We got it, man. It's alive and well. You guys need to share the show. You guys need to go to Brother Wise's page. He breaks it down too. Like he has it, everything sectioned off. Like he has the specific show for that specific context, and he tells you exactly what to do, man. He's giving you some grade A advice, man. So you know. And have you guys noticed that his voice never changed tone the whole time? He's telling you, he's giving it to you straight lace, no chase. So that's one of the gems. So now, Brother Wise, huh?
Yeah, I was gonna say that I looked at it that you know, like I said, it was a way of life for me. It, you know, if I didn't win, I didn't eat. You know, if it didn't work, then you know those results was going to make sure that the bills were paid and that there was actual livelihood for the people involved. So it was important that it be sound information. So for me, it wasn't about trying to sell it, even though the game is sold and not told. You know, the idea that, you know, it has to be in you and not on you. You know, that's why a lot of people feel that you have to be born with it and so on. But I do believe that so a man thinketh, that's the man that he is. So if you have the knowledge, you just have to spend time trying to make sure you understand it, so that it's second nature. So that when you're doing something, you're not trying to emulate and you don't really know why you're doing it. You need to know why you're doing it so that when you actually need to use another portion of the game and so on, that you can remain consistent in the sort of results that you're looking for.
That's true. And what he's saying too is that, you know, you need to know why you're doing something and what direction that you're going in with that something, because when you apply that something, what you will have is what's called conviction with what you're doing. You have a purpose, with what
Right,
you're doing, and that's
You have consistency, and it's definitely important to have purpose. A lot of people who are looking to have game, you say, you know what, he actually has the knowledge, but there's nothing that he's going toward. And I've always related business, because a woman is going to say, okay, so now what are we about to do? Okay, so we've actually said we're going to have a relationship, and I like being with you. But I notice when you're at home, you're just doing nothing but playing video games. You don't have any aspirations that looks like we'll be going anywhere. So it's that overall view, and then it's also an understanding the details so that you can remain consistent. You don't want to have done the right thing at first, but later on you're doing something that's actually rather contradictory to what you are professing.
That's true. That is really true. And it's hard for today's fellas, man. It's hard to kick the video games and the drinking and smoking and just like having a non-productive day, and then getting up and going to work, and then routine, fellas. You have to kind of implement some of these things into your routine. You have to make sure you're aware that you have a routine. Watch what you do every time you get off from work and coming home and doing things. Make sure you spend time in something that, whether it's the game or something that you really want to do, make sure you spend time perfecting something else for yourself, or something that you can eat off of in the future.
That brings to mind, I think it's pretty detrimental when we look at it. So, for an example, if we look at the President of the United States.
Oh, God.
I don't necessarily want to look at Trump. I prefer to look at President Obama.
Yeah.
But if we just look in general, we can see that there is, just imagine you see President Obama in there, he's got a cigarette out the side of his mouth, they're smoking a joint, tossing back, some drink, playing some dominoes, and you're like, dang, this is what you're doing in the White House. So, in a position like that, you really have to look at how people are viewing you. But I'm an advocate for weed. I don't have a problem that if somebody smokes weed. I don't have a problem that if somebody drinks. I think if we are always business, we're going to lose many of people, because they do want to have some pleasures in life. They're going to want to be able to unwind. Now, I would say if you drink, for a given example, you're a working man.
Yeah.
No matter what you're doing, if you were to be the type to where you drink and you're always getting drunk, you get violent, you turn into some sort of lush, maybe you want to cry and a lot of things. And with that, let's just say you're even just an alcoholic. Maybe not one who recognizes it yourself, but other people do. So then it's a problem. You can't drink to the point of destruction, but I would say you can't be all work and no play. You have to have some play.
You have to have balance. You have to have moderation, because one or the other, you're going to go crazy.
Yeah, I know if I were a part of some of the quote-unquote community types who, they're vegetarians and so on, and I'm like, well, I like the idea of being healthy, but I don't think that I need to go to some extremes. I'm one who likes to keep a certain amount of balance, and I feel like it's just realistic.
I agree. Shoot, man. Well, so let me ask you a question. With the progression model, how would you go from high to getting sex? Because let's face it, guys want sex. Don't even know why, don't even have a place for it, but that's what they come to, that's what they're mystified by, and that's what kind of controls them. It's the bodily function. They're thinking with their lower self, and as a man that knows how to suppress his lower self, how do you go from stepping to a woman all the way to sex? And we could kind of tie in the progression model and see where it fits in, or see what's going on.
Well, I built my channel on a progression model, and at this point, things just kind of come in. But in the very beginning, there's just steps to go by.
Yes.
And of course, because there's so many variables, I could probably talk for about an hour on the progression model to sex, and I wouldn't be able to do a lot of justice if I didn't cover everything. But just realistically, I'm not able to, so I'll give what I can.
Of course, definitely. There's always going to be some middle stuff.
Yeah, it's safe to say that, a lot of it is going to have to unravel naturally. If you have in mind that I'm going to lay this woman, and that's the most important thing to you, it's really going to be what's on your sleeve. She can go ahead and begin to manipulate you because of that. So it's not, now I've always said, because you'll have, when we go to the more extreme aspects of things and go to pimping.
Of course.
You'll find that pimping will say, they like to brag about the idea of not having a lot of sex. It goes to show that their game is based on knowledge and capability beyond any sort of sexual manipulation.
Yes.
And that's great. But in the case where, as a man, you ask yourself, well, are you not attracted to women? Personally, there are different types of body types, facial personalities that I find really attractive. Even the smell of a woman can be enough for me to say, I really like this woman. As much as I don't think that she's the beauty queen that others might think, but I could find myself more attracted to her. But I definitely don't want it to be as if my intent is to just get her in the bed because, hey, I'm highly sexual, I find you highly attractive, so look, I'm trying to get you in the bedroom as soon as possible. And don't really respect that. So I think the goal in talking to the woman and just looking at the natural progression of things that, hey, you did introduce, she was receptive, there's a certain amount of going forward that's going on, then, you know that it's coming and you have enough discipline in yourself to say, well, I respect the fact that I don't necessarily want a woman who's jumping in the bed with me right away. What are we really developing? A one-night stand?
Exactly.
Not my goal. We might have had some fun, but then the better sex, and this is just my way of looking at it, is someone that you have grown comfortable with to at least a certain extent. The animal magnetism is there, and when you know each other well enough, that's when you can really indulge in the pleasures better than if you were to rush and say, I know I just met you, but come on, let's go and do something now. And if not where she's at, you just really shot yourself in the foot because she's like, hey, he's going to do this with any other woman. As soon as he's someone, he's going to be ready to go run her to the bedroom. I don't know how much self-control he has. Is he really going to be faithful to me? Why would I move forward with him? So I think we have to look at it from a very realistic standpoint. If that is what he wants, then he's going to do that if she's willing.
But what about the instances where sometimes prolonging sex can only prolong something that is like it reveals something? You know how like sometimes you prolong it and then the person. Do you think there's a window that's there where somebody builds up a false perception of how it would be, and then when it happens, it kind of disappoints them, and they stop it right there?
That can definitely happen. I suppose there's a number of reasons why a person can be disappointed if they actually make it to the point of having sex and it really isn't. It is really going to depend on the individual because I think persons can enjoy a one-night stand, but I don't think a one-night stand is as enjoyable if you're with someone that you really care about. And let's say the very same people, they had a one-night stand and yet they did develop a relationship. They're probably going to have some of their most, I'm going to say, mind-blowing intimacy later on when they really get comfortable, when they really have a reason to say, now is the time. So definitely it's, if you had sex every day, those Ritz crackers are going to start tasting like your regular old saltines.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
So sometimes you do want to let something build. I think 3-4 days worth of allowing something to build is ample time. I don't look at a woman as being loose because she's moved that fast. As a matter of fact, it isn't something that I created. It's something that I just come to realize growing up that's about how long the average woman takes, even virgins. And a lot of people may not think so. But hey, it might have actually been 3 weeks, but we actually went on 4 dates over 3 weeks. People are busy with their lives and so on. I may have, and I always say that those days are counted from when we actually go out. I might have
Talk
seen her
to them. Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
the actual out on dates and everything. And if you wait too long, it's going to become a point where if that animal attraction is gone, then you're going to lose that first opportunity to really have the sort of intimacy that creates sort of a bond. And I know sometimes a person may disagree in saying, well, sex doesn't create a bond, but I think it's a combination of sex and the relationship that you're building with that person.
And fellas, what he's saying is absolutely true, because the thing is that, like I tell you, nowadays we live in an instant society. Things are happening instantly. And when you're using your game and you're around somebody, for like 4 days or whatever, within a week or something, it could feel like they've known you for a lifetime. So,
Sure, yeah.
So, you have to be aware of exactly what you're doing, because sometimes, too, you can miss a good girl by misjudging a situation, thinking that she slept with you quickly when she's actually just fitting what she's doing into her schedule, and it just happened to happen. So you guys have to really know exactly what you're doing and what to look for after to kind of really land a brief synopsis on what this person could be or what you guys could be. So, that's one of the things that you guys really have to look out for, especially when you're dealing with people and coming in at certain parts of their lives. So, do you so upon meeting somebody, what do you think is the next step? Do you think the next step should be to pull information out of them and then go off of what they tell you, or do you think, where would you lead the conversation as a square and I guess as a PI? Because I guess you can show people how these terms and what you're doing is interchangeable.
Well,
through
the most
leadership.
important part for me, whether I'm really getting this information later on or earlier on, ultimately I like the idea of allowing a person to speak. If they could take the time and talk to me, and I hope I have a person who does speak. Every now and then you come across a person that doesn't have anything to say.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how much chemistry I may have with that person if we are not able to talk, because I'm going to have to try and figure out who I believe I'm dealing with without the verbal. I have to see their actions. Are they in college? Do they have something that they're actually going for?
Mm-hmm.
But if I have a woman who can articulate, and I think most women can, I think a lot of women are actually pretty good at talking, not all, but quite a few. So in that case, I normally allow them to go ahead and just be themselves. If they're kind of ghetto, that could be a great woman, that's fun. If she is very classy, that's great. There's no real preference there. It's more so in her ability to unite with me properly. And of course, we understand I have a premise in saying, as far as the game, I'm going to be looking for her ability to cooperate with me. Someone that when I talk to, I can reason with. If she can understand that, okay, I'm dealing with a person here who has their thoughts in order, and what they're intending to do has been relayed, and this is what I'm trying to do. What is it we can do together? If she could contemplate that correctly, I don't think we're going to have any problem with progressing in the relationship.
And that's a big trait, fellas, that you have to look for in a woman. One that can take instructions and follow instructions. With minimum resistance. Not just saying that you should just get a woman that'll just do anything that you want her to, but when you deal with when you know what we're talking about, you know what we're talking about.
Yeah, that's why I put an emphasis on the woman has to like you.
Yes.
Because you have a lot of women, if they were in the feminist movement, they may have developed a lot of talking points. And as much as they might say something, they would say, that makes a lot of sense, but you're not right. And that's just my thought. I might have a different way of delivering, but I could laugh through it. As monotone as I am here, when I'm relating with people and we're just having fun, and that's my intent. I laugh and my tone changes and things like that. But just to be clear, that's why I talk the way that I do right now.
Mm-hmm.
But in the case that, you have these different personalities, like I say, I like the idea for the woman to be able to show me who she is. I can read into, what things are congruent with me. So in the case that she doesn't agree with me all the time, that's fine. But if I'm able to articulate and she can receive it and say, that really makes sense. One of the things that she might, and I know this kind of makes it starts to get a little long-winded here, but I need to be able to say it.
Of course.
If we're looking at gender roles, and so I kind of believe in those things. See, a woman is not a man is not a woman. And, and they may believe in certain traditional things that's different than gender role. I don't think that it's necessarily my position to just go out and make the money and take care of her. And I don't think a lot of women really even have that disposition, especially if they're in the feminist movement. They believe that they should be working, they should be having a career, they don't depend on the man. If he were to just, get hit by a bus one day, God forbid, she needs to be able to take care of herself. And hopefully, in all of his endeavors, he's able to leave something for her, of course. But that's the goal when they come together, to build something together. And a lot of that is going to be able to unite properly. What position do you carry? A man is in a leadership position. If he were to say, and I always think this is the ultimate sacrifice that comes within these relationships. If there was an attack or a robber, let's look at the Batman scenario. If you have your family, or even just you as a woman, and somebody draws down. Now, pimping is a little different, but just in general, are you going to stand and say, hey, this is how this is going to go? You're basically going to try and protect her. You're willing to put your life on the line. Yeah. And that's when you serve your country. You're putting your life on the line. And you're even your family as well as other families. But on an individual basis, you're going to be willing to put your life on the line as a man. That's the ultimate sacrifice we make when we truly get to a uniting. And it's okay for her to be afraid. It's okay for her to stand behind me. It's okay for her to be quiet, and she'll probably say, hey, just go ahead and give him what he wants, don't fight him. And I may want to heed that, because women are far from dumb. Women are very intelligent.
Exactly.
She understands that your being here and your well-being is very important. She doesn't want you to make that ultimate sacrifice unless you have to. And so with you being the person who makes that ultimate sacrifice, when worst comes to worst, you'll try and make sure that she's in a certain condition, because they're very important, very needed. So we want to make sure that they're safe and they're taken care of. I'm their protector. Yeah. And I'm able to do all the providing. I'll definitely do it. And I'd like to think that she's willing to do the same for me in the end. And that sort of unity to where, as my being the leader, I'm responsible. You have to designate in a business who's the leader. You have your supervisors, you have your the owner of the business, you have your workers. So the owner probably used to do all the work. At some point, he's like, hey, I'm paying you guys to do the work. The supervisors and the boss at this point.
Right.
There's a designated leadership. In a man and woman's relationship, it's designated that the man is the leader, and that means he's responsible. Leaders are actually serving the people that they lead. So they're not actually there to say, do this, do that. But at the same time, in their leadership and they're being responsible, they're going to set things in order and say, hey, this is what needs to be done. He should be able to heed her. In the case of she says, well, I don't think that's the best way of going about it. It doesn't mean he's not cooperative. It just means that we want to listen to what she's saying. And if we say, hey, that sounds good, but I need you to understand that this needs to be done this way, and how about you just go ahead and take care of that? Now, you can imagine in business that you constantly have people telling you what to do. You might at some point have to say, can you just go ahead and carry out the task that I ask you?
Right.
I am responsible. So if things go wrong, you can definitely point at me. But if they do, I should be the type of leader that says, I definitely should have listened to you, so we're going to do it the way that you did it. As a matter of fact, you seem to have an understanding. We might sit down so I can really see how she came to understand this and I didn't. And that might be a role that she can take on. You know what? I need you to go ahead and take over this, which is a form of actually being the boss at that point.
Of course.
Somebody comes along and says, she made a decision to do such and such. How do you feel about that? So I have total confidence in her decision to, her ability to make these decisions. So just go ahead and do what she asked you to do. And that's where my leadership and my position is going to back her up. So there's a lot more profound understanding than just being a leader to tell a woman what to do, or just because I'm the man. And just to say one last thing, in the case that the man isn't really to be in a leadership position, she shouldn't be choosing that man, first of all.
Yes.
Second of all, if she's going to go ahead and be with him for whatever reason, I couldn't even say there's a good reason to go ahead and be with him. She probably should be in charge of that. And that's said to say this, and and I got this out of the Bible. I find my information in different places. That if a person is good at something, let's say my woman is very good with math, and as far as accounting and how to do things in a particular way,
Let them do it.
yeah. And the pimp game, it's a no-no to say let the hoes be, and that's because that's the way the business runs.
Yeah, that business, that particular
But-
business. Yeah.
As it translates to square life and actually having the Mac mentality and knowledge, then it's to say that, well, at this point, who does the accounting? It's not against the rules that she actually handles the finances. Now, I'm ultimately over it. She has access to it just like me, especially if she's an investor and she's put in her work. But at the same time, she deals with that because that's what her strengths are. You let people use their strengths in order to strengthen your whole business that you're both creating.
And that's some profound shit because, fellas, what he's telling you, you can use this in the game, especially running a business too. And what he's telling you too is to be a leader that understands and be fair, because the thing is that, see, as a supervisor or a boss, you've been a worker before, so you understand that the workers are hands-on with certain things, so you understand there's going to be certain things that they're going to see and they're going to come to you, but you already know about it. And you have to learn how to you have to calmly let them know, look, I know, but this is how it's going to go.
Right.
I've been through that before. I know what you're going to be experiencing, but trust me, it's not like that. It's like this.
Right. That's the type of work that I do in my square life, supervisory, that sort of deal.
Yeah.
And one thing for sure, you're really serving the people more so than just being there to tell them what.
Of course.
Or kind of rules.
The people become your boss because they pay you.
Right. I mean, ultimately, in my position in leadership, a lot of times I'm not producing money, but they're producing money by actually doing the work. And I'm just assuring that everything is getting done. So I'm there to help them to do what they're there to do.
Exactly. But a lot of times people like to bring their personal shit into it too. And, fellas, you got to use that as a metaphor. That's the same thing as a relationship. Sometimes they will use an excuse as to why they weren't cooperating with you at a certain point. Well, my mom used to have a attitude when I was 6, so I just do that. That's why I don't cooperate you at, when we're in the middle of something. They tell you this at the calm down, and you're like, well, listen, you're gonna have to check yourself in the middle of shit and stop doing that mom shit, because you're not your damn mom, and you need to get your ass together so we can do what we gotta do. So I'm not gonna put you in no position like that. And then she's gonna be like, oh no, you can't. I'm sorry. And, it was just blah blah blah.
I've seen that. I've had interesting interactions with women and meeting, a lot of women in my lifetime. Not to say that I slept with them all, but just in meeting a lot of women and talking to them. I had a woman one day. It was not too long ago, actually. She told me, she said, if I were going to be with a man, like you, if you told me to do something, then I'll just do the opposite because.
Just cause.
That's just how I am.
Yeah.
So she had lame ass excuse.
It's amazing how they dodge responsibility.
Yeah, and I thought to myself, well, I don't know what the hell she thought I was supposed to think about that.
Yeah.
And I have to think that she's really working on a lower frequency. I don't know what kind of communication we could really do.
Yeah.
So I just kind of humored her. I never really even contemplated her being somebody that I would have a relationship with. I think maybe she thought I would have some sort of typical I want to smash if I can type approach, but I was just holding the conversation with her, and that was something that she said. And women, even men, come up with these sort of scenarios as for can't do something. And I've given different equivalences to that. If you're saying that you can't, then apparently you can't. So and I'm not even looking at this in hostility or trying to do you wrong.
Yeah, you observed what you're doing and you made a conscious decision just not to.
Yeah, you're subject to being fired. I don't really want to spend a lot of time trying to convince you that there's things that you can do if basically the debate is constantly about, why you're not going to do something. Is it because you know better than I do? I would prefer that if you're doing something, because I'm building something and I'm doing something. And if I have to do it by myself, then that's what I'll do. But when somebody comes along, you should be coming aboard knowing that, okay, now we're about to build something together. And if we're not going to have any sort of real congruency, and basically I'm looking for cooperation because I know where I am, then, whether it's considered firing her or not, I'm really not interested in moving forward. And I'm not going to do too much hesitating, even though I might give her some opportunities depending on the situation. And she'll be fired. She needs to get aboard or get ran over or left behind.
And that's how, and fellas, that's how you have to really look at shit. Even dating. That's how you really have to look at shit.
Yeah, I've dated women, and I knew that we weren't going to move on after a few dates. I think we had a lot of time, enjoying our time. And it was incumbent upon me to let her know. I think it's always the right thing to do, and saying, well, I enjoy spending time with you, but as far as an actual relationship, now, if she were to go ahead and say, well, I think I'm going to go ahead and change some of my behavior because he is not going to accept it, then that would be great. But if she doesn't, then we can agree to go ahead and go our own direction.
Yeah. And that's exactly how you guys have to really carry it, because the thing is like I said, you don't want to waste your time. The time you spend with somebody not doing what you want somebody to be doing or need somebody to be doing or would like somebody to be doing could be the time that, the time that you spend with somebody not doing that could be the time that you can spend with somebody doing that. So you don't want to hold yourself back.
Yeah, when we look at, women who, they really seem to enjoy the idea of being rather uncooperative. And it's because a lot of times, there's a lot of men who's accepting it. Yeah. They don't know any different. And to me, that's definitely not an excuse. That's why I tend to tell men, if you spend time smelling the roses, at some point, that right one is going to come along. So she may not even be necessarily fighting, raising her voice or being really ghetto about it, but she told you straightforward, I'm doing this and you're doing that. And I had to say, well, great. Looks like you're doing some really good things in your life. Glad to have been able to spend some time with you and everything. Hey, keep in touch and let me know how things are going, because the relationship is not going to go any further.
What would you tell the guys that are like they have one-itis, they're like, well, it's just this one girl and she's the only one, and oh my God, it's just her. I don't want any other ones. Or the guy that's probably fresh out of a relationship and he needs to get over his girlfriend, his ex-girlfriend. What would you tell this guy to do to get over this one woman?
I think that we have to understand that we weren't born onto this planet with that person connected to our hip. It's almost like a particular job. We may have really liked that job, but sometimes that time will come that we have to move on. There's just changes in life that we have to be ready to accept. So in the case that, you really care for a woman, there's no reason why you should deny that you do. If you do, you do. If you feel some particular way, but you do have to look at how you behave. You may want to behave in a particular way. I mean, in some cases, it could be a sick love. If nobody's going to have you, if I'm not going to have you, then nobody can. And I think, some people just kind of talk and they didn't mean that. But even if they just destroy your property or they go ahead and try and defame your name, that sort of thing, they're not really behaving in the way that they should.
That's true.
But a person is having confidence in themselves, looking forward to what they can create, and look forward to what they will have. That's a part of using that third eye. A lot of people think the third eye is based on being able to move the pieces on the chessboard with your mind. No, but it's really the fact that you can see without using your eyes. You can actually picture in your mind.
Yeah, we talk about that on the show, The Third Eye of Game.
Yeah, when you paint that picture in your mind, you can actually create whole scenarios. And that'll help you to, if you realistically paint that scenario even, you can actually have already lived through the scenario, so you're pretty comfortable when you go through it. If you can envision the relationship that you're going to have, how you're going to go about it, you can be rather inspired. It's almost like if you knew that being rich was right around the corner. There was a number of things you needed to do. You know this is going to happen, so you're excited and you're working toward it. It's the same thing with a relationship. You're able to envision what you can have. And for me, an experience with very cooperative women in my lifetime tells me that it is there. And, you know, you just have to be willing to allow yourself to embark upon that. And if there's someone that you're not going to be with, really cares about them, you can continue to care about them. But you will need to go ahead and continue to live your life.
Damn, that is A1. That is true. That is real true, man. Fellas, did you hear what he said, man? So,
you know, I think if someone have love, I even tell this to women, like when you're going on dates, the potential, and I want to use love, I think that's an extreme word, and I think when people don't really understand what love is, then they're a little lost. But it's better to have loved and lost than to never have loved at all.
That's some real shit. Real shit. Yeah.
If I went on a date with a woman, and let's say we enjoyed time with each other for about 3 months, but it really didn't work out, we don't necessarily have to fight ourselves apart, because this person could actually become an ally in a different way. And you can say, you know, we really did enjoy the time that we did spend together. You know, maybe sometime in the future we could spend time with each other like this. And when you're around me, you look at me and I look at you. We know who we're dealing with. You know how genuine I am. I know how genuine you are. You know, we're not cut out to have a relationship with each other. And we may not even be happy about something, but you know what? I do want the best for you, and I think you want the best for me. I think when people are able to develop good relationships in their lives, they'll find themselves in a lot better place than what they had ever found themselves in before.
That's true. That's really true.
Yeah,
one thing I wanted to talk to you about also before we get to part 3, because we about to get into part 3, y'all, man. We about to really kick it off. We about to end it off with some real shit. Let me ask you a question. Why do, like, you ever a woman ever get you to a point where you're right and you're like, okay, you know what, I'm gonna bow out, you know, I feel that I'm gonna leave, you know, I'm gonna X myself out of this situation, and you know she doesn't want you to do that, but what happens is, why do they always have to do something to make themselves mad at you so they can feel not bad about cutting you off? So for example, she cheated on you and you're like, okay, I'm about to bounce, but then she wants to key up your car or do something to kind of make you respond back to her so she can feel she can hate you, just so she can be like, you know what women do, they make you want to be like, die bitch, die. You know what I'm saying? They get you to that point before they break up.
I think, you know, people a lot of times, and I like to say in their mess, you know, they like to justify what they do. I think it's just kind of human nature to justify why you do the things that you do. To me, it's just another form of providing an excuse.
Yes.
And some people like to have their cake and eat it too.
That's key right there, providing an excuse, yes.
Yeah. I've never actually dealt with a woman cheating on me. If the woman has ever done that, she was nice and clever about never letting me know. But my women are usually like my best friend. So in the case that she'd be cheating, I don't know why she'd be with me. You know, so a lot of women do have that disposition. They won't waste their time with someone and cheating. I think a lot of what we learn as far as actually the game, and you actually get that in you, you could actually kind of sense whether or not that's the case. Now, I don't know. You do have those variables. If you got a pencil dick dude, you know, maybe his dick is only the size of a pinky. I don't know. I really can't speak for what he can do, because she probably will be unsatisfied. He probably has to find a woman who, you know, whether he's going to be using gadgets or, you know, what he can do. because ultimately she's going to be craving, dick that can do what it's supposed to do.
That's true.
She probably, and the way I look at it is what really should have happened is that she shouldn't have chosen a man that she couldn't be faithful to. So I don't think that would really be his fault or anything like that. It's nothing that he should be concerned about. If he's a guy that pre-ejaculates, he's not able to actually have sex because, well, he's got apparently some sort of condition where he can't even get it in before he nuts, or he could only fuck for 5 minutes. Then he's probably going to have to figure out what he can do. But overall, we would hope that he's going to find a woman who says, well, you know what, I know how to work around that, or, and I'm not
accept that, yeah.
Yeah.
Shoot, that nigga need to change up his diet.
If you can imagine if you have, persons who have these situations, a woman that basically is foul, in one way or another, whether she's cheating or not, and yet she's trying to justify it, that in itself to me is a form of mental condition. I like to say everybody is crazy somehow. You just have to push the buttons right, and you'll see just how crazy they are.
It's a character flaw.
Yeah, it's definitely a character flaw. They don't have the ability to reason, have some chemical imbalances, whatever the reason it might be. And you'd want to try to be able to sense that ahead of time if possible.
That is true, man. Listen, y'all, I want y'all to catch us on part 3. We're going to go more deeper into the progression model. We're going to talk about the sweet science, man. It is Player Talk Radio. We are in the building, man. Brother Wise is kicking it. We in the den. Talking about that shit, man. Let's get it.
You're now in the mix with the young DJ Cuda. Tonight we gonna be going in. All the boys and joys and shoes.
Let's get it.